As you may tell just by looking at me, heck, I can't even get the words out I want to say. First thing my guy, Jeff Drummond, said to me is, Adam, man, you look tired. And I said, I think this is what Will Stein felt like when he was doing two jobs. I've been in Morgantown for, I don't know, 17 days, feels like longer than that, running on fumes. But we saw some, I mean, Jeff, unbelievable baseball. Welcome to another edition of a KSR Rapid Reaction. Got a little Rapid Reaction double dip. Milan Momcilovic, I know the Big Blue Nation is fired up about that, but we've got to wrap up what we just saw here at Kendrick Family Ballpark in Morgantown, Game 7 of the Morgantown Regional. Jeff, I can't imagine there's ever been a better regional than that.
That's up there with all of them that I can remember. I don't know if there's been that many close finishes at the end, especially the heartbreak for covering Kentucky in these close ones. But yeah, that one it takes the cake compared to all the other ones I've been around.
What was more heartbreaking, last night or tonight for Kentucky? I mean, pick your poison, right? I think we lost Jeff there for a minute. Peek, see if you can get him in there. But yeah, I think pick your poison with Kentucky. Jeff's back. Like, pick your poison, Jeff, right? Like, which one is more heartbreaking? I personally think, losing the way you did, blowing that 3-run lead is obviously the most disappointing. But to scratch and claw and just fight and to have it there and have a chance to win it, and all your big bats all got a chance, right? Tarnish got a chance in the 8th. Bell got a chance in the 8th. Brown got a chance in the 9th. Hindle got a chance in the 9th. Van Cleve got a chance in the 9th. So you had all the guys that had performed all weekend and performed for you really all year. Those have been your guys in the lineup, and you just couldn't find a way. 2 of those Hindle balls, Jeff, I don't know how they didn't find the chalk. Like, one of those finds the chalk. I think Kentucky, it's at least 6-6. So, like, I think they might win. If one of those finds the chalk, you can't. So a game of inches in a lot of ways in a weekend where, or at least 2 nights where it felt like West Virginia got some of the breaks. Felt like John Denver was moving the winds in Morgantown to get those balls go foul. It just felt like one of those. It just felt like West Virginia's weekend, honestly, when you kind of just take a step back and look at it.
Yeah, if you watch them all weekend, they dropped so many balls just inside the lines, down both the left and the right field line, and the Cats couldn't buy one like that. I'm with you. If one of those from Hindle gets through there, it could be a different story. But that's the way the ball bounces sometimes, and you got to tip your cap to West Virginia. It's crazy thinking back to the heartbreaker last season, also won by on Armani Guzman, hit the same kind of hit, a sinking line drive right in front of a diving UK outfielder who almost came up with a saving catch. Last year it was to right field. This year it's to center field. It just barely misses it. I thought Jace Tarnish was going to come up with that ball.
I did too.
But
I think I don't think he got a great jump on it off the bat. I think if he gets a little better jump on it, he probably catches it without the dive.
At nighttime, sky gets tough around then. And I think it takes a little bit of reaction time off, especially when you've started a game in the daylight like that. But just so many close plays. You've got Bell, almost beating the pickoff throw and it getting overturned. Kentucky couldn't win a replay challenge all weekend. Maybe if they win
0 for 100
somewhere along the line, it changes things. But just seemed like they're snake bit. But the one thing that stuck with me, Adam, and you reported it last night from the press conference, Nick Mingione promised this team would put it aside at midnight, bounce back, and fight today. And I think the fans feel a whole lot better the way they went out, today with the fight and to get back in it and give themselves a chance than had they just let, West Virginia run away with it and have a sing-along all night long.
Right. I feel like we were headed that way. Yeah.
At least they made that crowd got tight for about 2.5 innings.
When Brown hit that piss missile that got out of here, I think, Jeff, that thing got out of here in like 2 seconds. It's like, Okay. Okay. Let's just get out of this inning. Get out of this inning. Get the lead. Get out of this inning. And Hendel grinded in a bat, right? Grinded at that at bat, and then pulls one over into the really behind the Kentucky bullpen. That the place was just like, and it got even quieter, Jeff, when Bennett comes in. Boom, boom, boom. Like that eighth, you just felt like, oh my! I thought right then, I was like, they're gonna win this game. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to win this game somehow, some way. But it ended up not being. And really, I think before we kind of shift into just putting a bow on the season or what becomes next for Kentucky baseball, I think this game again, it was somewhat of a microcosm of the season. Think about the run trade. Guzman gets under the tag. Bell does it, right?
Yep.
West Virginia comes around to score. Kentucky does it. So you have that. You again have a pass ball / wild pitch strikeout ends up in a run in the first inning. Those are two like runs you felt like West Virginia just stole, right?
After stealing 4 the night before.
Yeah. And a little bit in a weird way, Jeff, I felt like the shoe was on the other foot, Kentucky, because Kentucky had more slug. Kentucky had the big boppers in this matchup. And it felt like West Virginia, they were always kind of in danger with Kentucky because Kentucky had the bats that could just hit the damn thing out of the ballpark. And we saw it really, I think, all weekend. Tarnish, Bell, Brown, Hendel, Kentucky, and Van Cleve. Kentucky had the bats, and that felt like what Kentucky goes against in the SEC, where it's like it's such a thin line in these games that you're playing with. It feels like you're kind of playing with fire, and if you get a little sloppy, you could look up and boom, like a 5-1 game can turn into. It was a tie game like that, all 2-out damage. But overall, it was a lot of the same things. It just felt like with Kentucky, bullpen just kind of has the scratch and claw. When the pitching is working and they're giving you outs, like Kentucky's offense just couldn't get it going. But at the same time, this team, they were like Rocky versus Creed in the first fight. It just keeps knocking him down. There's a great line in Rocky 2 where Apollo's trainer goes to him and he's like, "We do not need to fight this man. I've seen this man in that ring. That guy, you beat him like no one has ever beat any man that I've ever seen in my life." And he just kept coming after you. We don't need that man in our life. Now Kentucky couldn't get over the hump and the knockout, but that just felt like it. Like they just kept coming after him. And West Virginia is kind of the same way. They're very, very similar. Just kept coming after him. So for Kentucky, it was a season of misfires, right? 0-8. Midweek, or not midweek, excuse me, 0-8 in rubber matches. Again, another rubber match here. They just couldn't figure that out all season. The pitching again, Jeff, you get the soft start from Susie, and I'm guessing the plan all along was soft start, bring in Jelkin. But Jelkin has a short outing, like as you could expect. He threw 98 pitches the night before, so you don't get the length from the starter. You're deep into the bullpen. Offensively, sometimes it comes in bunches, and then late in games, I felt like this pretty much most of the year, Jeff, they just could not get the big hits late in a lot of games.
Yeah, you nailed it. And somehow, despite having to dig out of the elimination bracket, West Virginia just came up with all this pitching stamina to get through, 3 wins in less than 48 hours. And they're running guys out there who threw 120 pitches the day before. It's like, how is this even happening? I didn't think he would go with who was it? Dawson
Montesa, who threw 122 pitches on Sunday afternoon against Wake Forest.
That might draw some critique from some corners, people watching that. But they did what they had to do, and the kid must have said he was fine to go out there and do it. But they had some guys that just had, I think, a little more stamina to go longer in games than Kentucky's did. Even though, all things considered, I thought Kentucky got a really good overall pitching performance.
If you had told you that they'd give up 5 runs going in the 9th inning,
I'd say they win.
Yeah, you say they win. You'd like, yeah, can I lock that in right now?
I think the total tonight was like 13.5. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, over. It's going to be a beer league softball with the
Yeah.
pitching that's left. But you had guys step up. You had Susie step up, and it wasn't Jackson Jelkin's best, but I think he gave them a little bit of time there in the middle.
And I think it gave the team a lift, like in the middle of the game,
Yeah, some
to just kind of
emotional
buy it. Yeah.
juice, and then on the back end, Jack Bennett was just phenomenal.
So I mean, our Austin too. I think Kentucky would wish if they could do this season over again, they would get that Austin. A lot of the issues with the bullpen this year were in jams, just getting outs, having a guy that could come in and just get some outs. Even if you're giving up some contact, just get outs. Austin did that 3 games in a row here, all against West Virginia. Excuse me, came in and got outs when Kentucky had to have them. He was critical, and then Bennett was great again. I mean, Bennett had a great regional. Niall Adcock had a great regional. Pitched good against Wake Forest. Pitched good against West Virginia. They got, I feel like, really good pitching, except everywhere but the 2 starts against West Virginia, or the 2 starts against West Virginia until the night, and then the bullpen meltdown in the ninth, and it just in key high leverage moments, they just couldn't finish it off, and that's kind of the story I think of this team. They just felt like they were a punch away. I mean, over and over again, it felt like they just needed one more punch in their bag, one more tool in the toolbox, and they just couldn't get it done. And I do, Jeff, I want to switch to just where does Kentucky go from here? I know a lot of people have questions, and what do you think they'll change? What will happen? But first, we're going to shout out our friend Andy Ludicky at My Perfect Franchise. Andy is here to help. Are you sick of the corporate world and want to get out of the rat race? Want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy? Have a job and want a side hustle? Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fits his skill sets, passions, and financial requirements. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you can text/call Andy at 404-973-9901. Jeff, I think it's an interesting spot Kentucky is in here, because in some ways, I think when you think of Kentucky baseball and you think of Mingione, in some ways I think about that West Virginia team that we saw. Pitching, defense, not a lot of thump per se, but maybe have that one top dog at the top of the lineup, have a guy who's an absolute speed demon on the base path, and then just have guys that can put the bat on the ball throughout the lineup and make things happen. Play small ball, execute, take advantage of mistakes, don't make mistakes, and then get the pitching and all of that. Kentucky, in some ways, Jeff, I almost felt like they were kind of in between this year. Felt like they had some star power and some big thump, but this wasn't a team that necessarily, like, they fought and scratch and claw, but the pitching just wasn't there really all year. Outside of Tarnish, it felt like the base path traffic really wasn't there for them a ton. And then some of the execution, the small ball bunt and stuff like that we usually see, just felt like they just struggled at that this year, which I think what they want to be like a core part of their philosophy and their strategy. So in a weird way, I think they were kind of in between, and they're entering, I think, a very interesting offseason to see how they build it, because they're losing some big pieces, but they're going to have potentially a lot of core guys back that are pretty good. You look at Ethan Hindle start off, Braxton Van Cleve, Hudson Brown potentially. We'll have to see all the draft decisions and stuff. See if these freshmen, Caden Cloud, Owen Jenkins, can make a jump. So you have all that there. So you've got some pieces, and they're going to load up in the portal. But where do they go? Do they try to go and get more thump, as everyone has asked for? How do they go to address the pitching? It's really kind of, I think, a fascinating off season for them, because it felt like they were so close this year, but also felt like they were so far away in some regards.
Yeah, you can look at it a lot of different ways, but I sure would like to see them try to shore up the pitching staff with a few more arms that can get them through some of these tough situations on the third day of an SEC series and into tournament situations like this. I think they're just a little bit short out there. They've missed on a few evaluations of guys. that they thought had a little more talent than maybe they've shown so far. But I've also pointed out to people asking about this. This is the most expensive people to get by far.
Right. That's the hard part.
Everyone wants power bats and everyone wants power arms that miss bats. And you have to pay like a crazy amount to get those guys. And you're in competition with the whole world to get them. So it's easier said than done. You've got to kind of pick your spots and try to find the right guys that fit. Try to find another Jackson Jelkin, maybe if you can out there. But yeah, that's where I would look first, and then maybe try to find one more power bat somewhere. Short, you got to think about shoring up the defense a little bit.
Yeah,
because this was a step back this season for what we typically see from Kentucky defensively, especially on the infield. Had a lot of costly errors on the infield. Didn't have a lot of speed in the corner outfield spots, especially when you went away from Campbell in left field, who's a pretty good defender, but a big-time arm. But when you went to the Hansen and Van Cleve tandem out there, you lost a little bit of range. So they may have to think about that a little bit, maybe have one of those guys in a DH spot or, first base rotation of guys, but a lot of questions. Yeah. And one of the biggest we haven't even mentioned yet, but I've been hearing that there could be an interesting decision for Jackson Jelkin, depending on his draft slot. And if it's not high enough or where he wants it to be, I think there's a possibility they could have him back next year. I wouldn't count on it, but I wouldn't write it off either.
Yeah, that's the rev share NIL era. You're going to have players like that think long and hard about these types of things. I think, Jeff, it's going to be real important, I think, for them to – it's probably more so a bullpen thing, but they're probably going to have to get a starter from the portal as well. But they need to – this Ian Korn kid that West Virginia had on the mound, he was a Division II pitcher. He was an all Big 12 reliever. Like for Kentucky, they've got to find guys like that. They've got to find Ryan Waldschmidt, right? Yeah. They've got to hit on some of these guys. And so –
and that's been a lot of the staff's been able to find those guys throughout this run, going back to 2017, that you really weren't expecting great things out of, and they turned into really good SEC players. So they've got a knack for finding those guys. Yeah,
and I think overall, you kind of put a bow on this weekend, Jeff. I think they lost to a better team. I think uniquely Kentucky kind of really matched up well with West Virginia, and I think really presents them some problems with how they play, because I think West Virginia plays a certain style, but I think Kentucky's comfortable playing that style. And also Kentucky they're comfortable playing that style. And I think they have some thump in the bat that they can really give they gave West Virginia a ton of issues. And I think even in the stadium here, Jeff, I think people were nervous because Sabins was throwing his best arms, and it felt like Kentucky was on him. Like it felt like only a matter of time before Kentucky got to him, because you saw it felt like only a matter of time, especially if you go to the next inning, that lineup rolls around to Tarnish and Bell. Felt like they were going to get them, and it felt really close. So it's unfortunate that
West Virginia's lineup rolled over before Kentucky's could again.
That was probably the difference.
The difference in the game. And I thought it was a series they probably should have won, but West Virginia was the better team because they came up big in the biggest moments.
You saw about one team won 40-something games and the other team won 33, right? Like that, West Virginia found ways to win games like that all year, and Kentucky just couldn't finish the deal in a lot of those games, especially when Jelkin wasn't pitching. Like when Jelkin wasn't pitching, they just had a hard time putting together outs. And even when they got the outs, getting the key hits. And so getting that together and putting it together is going to be key. It was an interesting, I thought, press conference from Nick Mingione. He ends it with thanking Mitch Barnhart for his service. Obviously, those two are very close. So that was kind of his farewell to his boss. And also the players, interesting to me. And it was really, I thought, Jeff, a sign of just strong culture over there. Like they do have guys pulling on the rope together. that they just stayed in the fight. And I think it's a testament to them, like making the tournament, making this run. I know it's not what everyone wanted for the season, but it felt like that thing could have got off the rails really multiple times all year, and it never did. They stayed in the fight. Again, they were rocky. They just stayed in it, didn't quit, and they gave themselves a chance.
You could have had a guy at the hot dog stand.
Yeah.
The way things went last night and started off tonight. It really could have unraveled like that, to borrow from Kentucky's football exploits.
Yeah. And it's a tough year, to end like that, so close to such a big win. But I do think they are in a good spot program wise. I think it's a really important offseason, because I think they could be really good next year if they hit on the right additions, and have some guys take some big steps and retain some talent. But overall, fascinating team, fascinating season. And just from my point of view, Jeff, like that team, that was one of the more fun teams I've covered since I've been doing this job, because you never really knew what to expect with them throughout the year. They surprised you, and then they would disappoint you. But the thing I respect most about them, and I'll try to wrap it up here, those dudes they didn't have a quit in them, and they just kept coming. And you have to respect that. And I think it's a sign just to the culture that Minjione has built, that they really are they have a strong foundation, and that they're close to like putting it together and going on a run that I think everyone wants them to go on. They were just a fascinating team to cover. And it's like we said on this show last night, I know everyone's down on them after that game last night, but nothing that team did all year would lead me to believe that they were going to fold the tent and, let go of the rope. And they didn't. They fought like hell.
If Kentucky fans are frustrated right now, people need to check out the college scoreboard and look at the carnage.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's frustrating about it, right? Yeah.
There have been great teams fall by the wayside already. Kentucky wasn't a great team this season. They weren't supposed to win this thing. They were 3 seed. They fought hard. We thought they were going to do it. But there have been some genuinely championship level teams bow out of this thing already. So there's a lot of frustration to go around. This event is just, the regionals are madness. It's absolute chaos.
Yeah. If you don't believe it, look at my face. I am absolutely exhausted. I am what the kids call cooked, my friend. I had a ball, had absolute ball. Thanks for everyone for following our coverage all year. I can't wait to do it again. We got a little thing called football season that me and Jeff got to get through, and then a little thing called basketball season that we got to get through as well. But when basketball season gets here, that's when the baseball season really gets started. Our coverage is not going to stop. We'll be covering what's going on in the portal and just the team build for Nick Minjione. Again, critical offseason. That'll all happen in these summer months. Drafts in July. We'll have that covered. But thanks to everyone who watched us this weekend, was on the board, not only this weekend, but throughout the year. There's a lot of you. Yeah. Crazy people. We're on the board with me for that Evansville weekend. A lot of you on the board with me while I'm flying to Vegas with my wife, and I'm on the message board, and I'm following Scorecast for Kentucky Evansville on a doubleheader in February. It's been a fun ride. We'll get to do it all again. Fun season, but the fun comes in tonight. Morgantown, West Virginia 6, Kentucky 5, 10 innings. Batcats are done. Now they move forward to the next season. We'll get to see what they can do. Jeff Drummond and me will be here to cover it all for KSR. For Jeff, this is Adam Luckett signing off. I finally get to go home. I'm hitting the highway. No one's going to be happier to get across that Kentucky line from the West Virginia to the Kentucky line than me.
Well, you see that beautiful Ashland skyline.
When I see that. I might get out of the car and kiss the ground, Jeff. I might just do that. For Adam Luckett, Jeff Drummond, I got to get out of here. I got to write, and I got to get some sleep.
Safe travels.
Thank you, crazies, for following us. Big Blue Nation, we'll be back next year.